Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm good. I want to thank you, first of all, for meeting with me and helping me out with this class. And I will say again, my instructors heard it and y'all have heard it. It's been a long time since I've been in a math classroom, but I have learned a lot about math instruction and how it's changed through the years. I know for y'all, you've been in college classes very recently in my eyes. I know probably not to y'all. The time goes slower when you're younger sometimes, but there's been many, many changes, and I don't know if you noticed it from being a student to becoming a teacher. And I have been really intrigued with a lot of it, and I didn't really think I would be. I was dreading the math component of it. But the first thing I want to offer to you, leading this professional learning discussion, is a lady that I found extremely interesting. I know that Curriculum and Associates is great, and I've read a lot of the PDFs they have about math, and of course we have the reading program, so it's very similar. But her name is Joanne Bowler. There's a lady who does videos on the discourse and the strategies, and I really liked her video, so I'll send y'all a link for that, just in case you're a nerd like me and you like to just look at other people's ideas about things. But she was at the forefront of doing math in a different way, where you're thinking about the strategies. And she just did like 15 times 8, and I came up with the way I would do it, which was basically what y'all call friendly numbers. And I was just amazed at the middle school age kids that would come up with different ways of doing it and how many different ways there were to think about it. And one student described it as being creative and colorful instead of the old black and white of math. And that's how I always thought about math. But I was told, I'm doing all the talking, that last year your cohort, which is like a professional learning community, discussed using manipulatives. And so I just wanted some feedback on how that went, with that being what your aims were for that cohort and how that went last year. And then we'll talk about this year, because this year you can't use it like you did last year quite the same way. Anybody? Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are y'all gonna be shy like kids that won't talk?
Yeah. Hey, what I gathered out of the cohort that we had is the manipulatives. You know, some kids are hands-on, as you know. Some kids are visual, and they just learn different. And with the hands-on kids, the manipulatives helped out tremendously. And we took surveys and everything about which manipulatives they liked better, and which ones they could see visually better. And that helped us out, or it helped me out, to see what not to use, because some of the initiatives that we used, they really didn't like or didn't get nothing out of. So I use those and just use the ones that they like, or the ones that it helps them. And, you know, that's what I got out of a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it really helped those kids that needed it. There were kids that didn't need it, that, you know, just wanted to play with them. So you had to go, and we had to take time to teach them how to use the manipulative. And a lot of kids started out with the manipulative, and then they learned some of them didn't need it. So they just like graduated from the manipulative, but it still helped them at the beginning, and they were able to gradually release from the manipulative.
Okay. How did, for the kids, like, you probably noticed at the beginning of the year they needed that. And so what have you done this year differently, and what can we discuss to continue to do differently, with us not being allowed to hand materials out that they touch, and different things like that? Are y'all using some manipulatives in some way? Your mic got turned off, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you did that on purpose.
If they have their own individual set of manipulatives, we can still use them. So, like for your class, I passed out those fraction tiles when we started fractions.
Okay.
But I feel like we don't use them quite as much, because we know we have to have more of them, or we, have to pick a specific set of students who need them. But for fractions, that's usually one that they have trouble with understanding the concept of before we start doing anything with fractions. So I use fraction tiles. I just made sure that everyone had their own set, though they wouldn't be sharing or passing them around.
Okay.
Yeah, and I passed out like counters, the red on one side and the yellow on the other. And we use that a little bit with division just to learn like what division was, because some of them still didn't understand that division is just opposite of multiplication. So they were able to create like a division problem and break it into groups and see it was multiplication. So it's just like you start out with them and then they might not need them anymore. So, but like Martina said, with the fraction, they were able to look at it and see like what 3/4 looked like instead of just drawing it.
And this year, I feel like with not being able to touch and not having, in my classes, we've got 3 classes rotation. So it's more students. So we don't have as many manipulatives for everybody to have them. So we have to come up with, whether it's printing some off and having them cut them out themselves and keeping them, in a Ziploc bag at their desk. So we're just having them come up with different ways this year to make sure everybody does have some kind of manipulatives when we do need them.
Right.
There's a lot of them that are online also that you can just like click and drag to move fraction tiles or circles, whatever that you need.
Yeah, and I'm sure with the iReady component, they give them those too, the online component. That's great. Well, since manipulatives, y'all have handled it like you pretty much feel like the best you can do with online and what you could give individual bags out. Do you feel like the discourse is going like you want it to go in the rooms? I know I observed Mr. Robertson's class and even students that felt like they chose a strategy for estimating that they could tell after they did it that it was too much. Like some of them did the drawings. I don't think that's the exact word y'all use. Is it drawings? Is that what you call it?
Picture it.
Okay. Some of them that drew figured out that it was too much to draw, but they spoke right up and said that this doesn't work. And I really found that part interesting too. So do you all feel like everyone's participating and getting a lot out of the discourse?
We're doing the best with what we got.
Yeah.
Like last year they were able to sit, we were able to move them in the floor with a partner or 2 partners. They were able to move desks. But this year, they can't turn and talk. So it's more of us asking the questions and them telling us their strategies and us writing it on the board or very different, but they're doing really good with it. They still answer the questions and we're still working with them answering like in using sentence stems to answer in complete sentences. So not just answering with just one word. So we're trying to get them as much as we can with the discourse.
Well, that's another part of our COVID situation is not getting to talk in groups. And I'm sure there was even more great conversation then, but I was impressed with how students would speak up even if they weren't quite sure of their strategy they used and how the ones that used a strategy that worked, the others you could kind of see, oh yeah, that would be the best strategy. The light bulb would go off. And then one student chose the array model, I think you call it. And he didn't need to choose that for estimating. And Mr. Tim just Mr. Robertson drew it all on the board. And then you could say, he was like, oh yeah, he could really see that didn't work. And so I know y'all are doing a great job with what you've got to work with. Like you said, Miss Miss Sperlin, Miss Benefield. I'll get it right in a minute. She recently got married, for those that'll be watching it. That's not part of our group.
Like I started with my discourse. We were just at the beginning of the year, we were just reading and just practicing saying our strategies. But now that we're used to that, what I've been doing a little bit of is like after a kid explains their strategy and I write whatever they did on the board, I let like 2 to 3 kids ask them a question. Like, well, why did you pick that strategy over the drawing strategy? Or do you think that's the best strategy for this and why did you choose it? Like I let them ask instead of me constantly trying to prod. So I let them try and they like to do it because they get to talk.
But I like to, after we do the several strategies, go around and ask what strategy worked best for you and why. And then also, they have several strategies that they didn't think of one strategy that somebody else used that works better for them. And that's where I like too, that, seeing the different strategies and stuff that they can see what works for them that they didn't think of or forgot about.
Right. If you remember, I sent out a survey on how you felt the curriculum was as far as ranking it with empowerment, with you as the teacher empowered to feel like that you can do what you need to do, and engagement of the students. And there were, let's see, is there 7 math teachers? Is that right? No, 6. I believe the 5 of the 6 math teachers and a special education teacher and 2 administrators did fill out the survey, and all of y'all did, and thank you for that. But it showed that you're 100% on board with feeling like you're empowered to do what you need to do for your students, and that the students are very engaged. But then also I had an assignment that how you felt about the curriculum that we have, and I got very positive feedback from the 3 of you. It's like with reading a little bit with the assessment. Sometimes there's not a lot of material to work with on a few of the lessons, and you have to come up with your own. But you feel empowered, but y'all are pretty much just going by the curriculum itself. Is that correct? Or do you kind of throw in your own things along too?
We add to it. There's certain places that maybe have a little void that might need a little more work on, which is to add to it. But
Yeah, because a lot of time, not a lot, but several times we've noticed, especially this year, the kids can't remember from last year because they had that long gap of no school. So we're having to kind of go back a little bit before we can start the curriculum and then add some extra practice to it. But besides that, we, try to move along with it like it's in the order.
Right. But you like the strategies and the discourse suggestions and what they do with already. It seemed like was the feedback I felt like that I got. Yeah. Mr. Tim may answer this, but then I know that y'all work with him with virtual, not getting to discuss strategies and probably not have discourse. Have y'all ever thought about in the classroom and with the virtual students doing some kind of chat where they can talk? Or what do you do? Is there anything you have done to try to
if the chat's not being, I guess, monitored, then it can get out of hand a little bit. But
right.
If you're there with them and like in class and let them do that would, we've done that before. But as far as just online, and you're not there while they're doing it, kind of thing, you're doing with others, it might get out of hand. But
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we did do in our videos in the beginning, though, where like Mr. Tim would say, get a stuffed animal or talk to a parent, a brother, sister, the mirror or something like that, and do like the turn and talk strategies that we do in person. We were just hoping, that they would do that at home, but obviously there's no way to require that or to make sure that they did do it.
Right. Well, I don't know. You know more about this than I do, Ms. McCormick, and maybe the rest of you too, the Go Guardian that we're getting. Maybe that can be something that we all work on talking about in the future if there was a way to do more discourse especially since we're not sure if students are going to really actually get to come back next week, and if the county's numbers keep going up or the states, we may end up at home again. So if y'all think of something, it's something we can just keep in our mind to talk about, ways for students to be able to communicate their thoughts about math. And so that'll be something that we can put on the table to work on and look at. Okay. I thank y'all for meeting with me, and I'm going to stop recording real quick. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.